Today we're going to be talking about some very useful methods and tips and tricks for how to beat your procrastination and do the thing that you're actually supposed to be doing instead of watching your fifth rerun of your favorite show. So without further ado, let's get into the tips and tricks on how to actually beat your procrastination habit. Tip number 1. Get organized. We tend not to realize how important our environment is to our productivity. When we work in a messy room and environment, our mind is scattered and messy, and we can't focus on the thing that we're supposed to be doing because we're distracted by all the things around us. So it might be a good idea to take stock of what is in your room or environment that you find yourself in, and how you can clean that up, tidy that up, and make everything a bit more organized and neat. This way you can focus on what it is you need to do in that environment and not get distracted so quickly. When you think about it, if you're just looking for one piece of paper, but your desk is scattered with hundreds of small little papers and leaflets everywhere, it's going to take you ages to find it. Whereas if everything was organized, categorized, put in file cabinets and stored away, you'll know exactly where everything is and you'll be able to find it with relative ease. That is what we're trying to accomplish, to create an environment that helps you to concentrate and decreases how easily you'll get distracted. Because once we're distracted, it takes us time to come back and focus on the task at hand. But if we have everything that we need at our disposal and everything else that isn't important to the task is put away, then we can only focus on that specific task, helping us to concentrate better and decreasing the amount of times we get distracted. While this exact scenario is probably not likely to happen, it serves as an example of the core of why having an organized environment is important to you. It will help you to concentrate more and be less distracted, helping you to focus more while you're actually performing your task. Because when we are distracted, we easily start procrastinating again. So in order to decrease our amount of distractions, helps us also not to procrastinate. Having a clean and organized environment also helps you boost your motivation, as it's a lot easier to sit down and do hard work if your environment is conducive and prepared for you to do that work, whereas opposed to if you're sitting down and you don't know where to begin because your environment is in complete chaos. Tip number 2, the law of inertia. Motivation does not equal action. Action creates motion, which equals motivation. We often wait for that massive burst of motivation before we actually get to do that task that's in front of us. But that just isn't the case. And if it were, we would do a whole lot less with our lives. We do not necessarily have a lot of motivation to do a lot of the things that we do in our daily lives, like making our beds, brushing our teeth, and taking a shower. But that's because those things are a habit and they are ingrained in us. We do them automatically almost. It doesn't take us a lot of motivation nor activation energy to do those tasks. So therefore, that completely debunks the motivation myth associated with working on difficult tasks. We can therefore, if we're struggling with procrastination, start by doing small tasks that help us to build motion. From that motion, we get motivated as we're already doing things at that point. It is very hard to, from sitting on the couch eating pizza and watching your favorite program, to jump up and start doing that university work, working on the thesis, or working on that big corporate project that you need to get done, because you're going from absolute zero motion to full throttle work. However, if we decide to start by just simply cleaning our work area, dusting our chair, prepping our work environment for the tasks at hand, we are already in motion, and when we're in motion, it's a lot easier to transition that motion to your next task. It is like the law of inertia. If you are in a car moving at a constant speed and you come to an abrupt stop, your body will still be moving at that constant speed. So if you're going from zero, aka sitting on the couch, to going and doing hard work, your body will resist that change in flow. But if you're constantly building momentum and you change lanes to doing difficult work, your body will move forward. Tip number 3, prioritize. Before your day begins, it is a good idea to write in your calendar your daily highlight of what is the most important thing you need to get done that day, or create an order list of priorities of what you need to get done that day and list them in order of importance. There is an old productivity hack known as Eat That Frog, which basically means do the hardest task of the day first, because that's the task you're most likely going to procrastinate on the most. After you're done with your biggest task of the day, the rest of your day will flow a lot smoother. And if you have two big priorities for the day, schedule the bigger one of the two first and the second one next. We tackle this task by saying, I'll get to that later, and we end up not doing that task for that day. But this creates a problem, as every day has its own frog. So if you don't tackle that frog for that day, there'll be two for the next day. We cannot just elect to not eat that frog for the day, because it will keep piling up. So we need to make the active decision of tackling that hard task for the day first thing and get it done as quickly as possible. We tend to focus on doing a lot of small busy work tasks during the day, such as checking our email constantly, or scrolling through our newsfeed, or talking to some of our colleagues at work. They seem like productive things, but really they're just time wasters. We get that feeling of accomplishment, and maybe we're even checking stuff off our to-do list. But those are generally unimportant tasks, and our time would have been better spent focusing on that one important task for the day. After finishing our most difficult task for the day, we will feel so much better and motivated to even do more work. This in itself will start creating a positive feedback loop associated with doing the hard thing first. So what is an easy way to prioritize our tasks? Get a calendar and write it down, or use Google Calendar if you don't want to use the old method of journaling, and schedule your tasks with alarms and so on to notify you when and where you need to do your next task. Tip number 4. Set deadlines. Another helpful tool in order to beat your procrastination and have some solid commitment behind the tasks you need to accomplish is by setting deadlines for yourself. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's super easy for you just to create a deadline and just not to stick to it. Nothing's going to stop you if you just don't do that thing that you set out to do, even if you write down, I want to accomplish so and so by today. And yes, if you set a deadline for yourself that way and you're not already in the habit of sticking to deadlines you create for yourself, you're very likely to not stick to that deadline at all. But what really makes deadlines actually work is if there's some pain or pleasure associated with that deadline. For example, when I was at school and we needed to hand in a big project by a certain date, if we missed that date, we would be deducted 10% every day we were late at handing in that project. This made sure that every student handed in their project on time, if not beforehand, because no one wanted to suffer the consequences of that deduction. But that was external, and most of our deadlines are internal. So how do we create pain and pleasure associated with our own deadlines? You can create pain for yourself by telling a trusted friend about your deadline and telling them that you have to give them $100 if you don't reach that deadline. It has to be something painful and something you actively want to avoid. It can't be something you'll be okay with if it happens, otherwise there won't be that sense of urgency. You can even take the step a bit further and make it really official by creating a mini contract with your friend, so your friend can remind you about this. There's actually some websites out there that you can commit to paying a certain amount that they can take out of your account if you don't reach a deadline by a certain time. Tip number 5, take a break. It is important to note that we only have so much time we can focus on a task before we start losing focus and start giving depreciating returns on input given. However, we should not abuse this fact and take breaks unnecessarily. The average adult can concentrate for no longer than 90 minutes before needing to take a break. Some studies say that we can only concentrate for about 40 to 45 minutes. Being more productive also means knowing your own limits and what your body needs before it starts going into declining results. At which point it is probably better for you just to do something else for a bit or doing some other small tasks. If you're starting to get into a bad mind space, if you're starting to become frustrated at the task you're doing, it might be better just to take a step back, maybe get some water, do some light stretches, and refocus yourself and take away that frustration. Because when you're at a bad state of mind, it's a lot harder to focus on difficult tasks. However, if you want to get into a state of deep focus and flow, it may not be a good idea to take a lot of breaks, as you are essentially distracting yourself from your flow state, and it's going to take you some time to get back into that state of deep work, and flow. So if you want to focus on a task for a significant amount of time, it might be best to limit your distractions, make sure that you're in a good mental state and that you have everything that you need in front of you so that you can start the process of deep work and enter that flow state a lot quicker. Tip number 6, the 5-minute rule. The 5-minute rule is basically as easy as it sounds. If you're struggling to start doing something that you've been procrastinating about for a while, just do this simple hack. That's a lot less daunting than knowing that you have to work on a certain project for 6 hours. So just take 5 minutes and focus on that task and try and get as much done as possible. This will inevitably take longer than 5 minutes as you start making considerable amount of progress on that task. This may not work for some of you at first, as you already know that you're doing this to basically trick yourself. So you know that you're probably going to work longer than 5 minutes, so it might not actually work for you at first. If that is you, just work on that task for 5 minutes. After that 5 minutes is up, get up and take a break for 5 minutes and then come back and repeat that process. This is so that you build a positive association with that task and you start building up your tolerance for working on that task. Eventually, you will get in that loop and you'll start to work longer on that task. It's a lot easier to say to yourself, if you want to write a book for instance, I'm just going to focus on writing 2 sentences today instead of saying, alright, I want to write an entire chapter. If you can focus on a small task and not get overwhelmed, and you keep on doing those small tasks, it will accumulate into a big accomplishment like writing a chapter. Remember that the goal isn't the finished chapter, the goal is training ourselves to become comfortable with hard work. How you can easily implement this 5-minute rule is by getting yourself a timer, preferably not your phone because we don't want to distract ourselves when we're trying to focus on deep work. So try and use a stopwatch if you can and just set a timer for 5 minutes to time yourself. Tip number 7, reward yourself. Reward yourself for your efforts. No one wants to perform difficult tasks and not get some form of reward. That makes you a bad master of yourself if you are just cracking the whip at yourself and not giving yourself some form of reward afterwards. You may think, well, it's unnecessary to reward myself afterwards because the reward is the finished work. And while yes, we do get some satisfaction from completing a project, we need to take some time to step back and pat ourselves on the back for a job well done. If we do this, we create a positive feedback cycle to our brain, telling us that, oh hey, I did this difficult task and I got a reward for it. Maybe it's not so bad after all. I'll remember that for next time. And slowly we start building up a tolerance for hard work as it's associated with something positive at the end. This will build up in the long run and eventually we will not need gigantic amounts of activation energy in order to perform difficult tasks. The inverse of that is if we finish a task and don't reward ourselves, our brain will go, okay, cool. I've just finished this great task, well done. Wait, why are we already moving on to the next task? I need a break. Stop, wait, this is getting too much. Okay, it's not so bad, but you get the point. Your brain will see that there's a lot of hard work being done, and if there's no positive association with it over time, your brain will start to avoid that. Because why would it do something that's difficult if there's no reward for it afterwards? So keep that in mind when you're planning your daily schedule and make sure that you write down what you're going to do to reward yourself afterwards. All these ideas I've learned from other people in my years of self-development. A lot of these ideas come from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear and some of the books from Mark Manson and his YouTube channel. All the links in the description below. They are all absolutely phenomenal books and I highly encourage you all to read them. I'm definitely going to do book reviews on some of those books into the future. So that is it for this video guys. I really hope that you enjoyed it and I hope that you got some value out of it. If you did, please leave a like and a comment on how it helped you and please subscribe for more of these types of videos into the future. That is all my friends and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.